Hey everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to CuePhoenix's final game in Season 7 of the online ladder. This is Game 3, CuePhoenix versus IAmTony, Zerg versus Terran on the map Ohana, LA. Hey everyone, this is GosuDad, and welcome to Ohana, LE, the final game in CuePhoenix's run in Season 7 of the online ladder. And this is CuePhoenix playing Zerg in the red in the lower right-hand corner, and in the upper left-hand corner is IAmTony playing Terran in the blue two-player map. These players will know exactly where each other are located relative to each other. Nice little main here with a short, small, very narrow entrance ramp down into the natural with your requisite 6 minerals and 2 gas destructible rocks. Between the natural and the typical third here, but with 2 entrance ramps to that natural, the destructible rocks, plus this main entrance ramp, which is very wide and hard to wall off, with a little bit of bushes and jungle scenery, with these Elnaga towers mirrored to each other, separated by these shrubbery thingies. So a pretty small map, but very standard Blizzard-wise. CuePhoenix going with that extractor trick. As we can see, he is supply blocked with the 11 drones droning away. Should be seeing an Overlord coming out for him, and IAmTony doing the typical Terran wall-off with the typical SCV that's just hanging out near his supply depot. Actually, that's not very typical indeed, but he is going for that barracks, saving up minerals for that, not very much going back in his base, building SCVs. That's so exciting to see those SCVs being built, that Overlord being built, and 3 drones being built for CuePhoenix, being morphed in by CuePhoenix. He's at that 14 supply mark, should be saving up for a hatchery going down in the natural expansion. Typical Silver League play. Up there we go. Drone going down to that natural expansion. Now, Overlord making his way slowly across this map. The map is small enough that he's able to make it over there in a fairly good amount of time. Going to be able to see that there's really nothing going on in IAmTony's base. He's putting down a refinery, so possibly going for some tech. Could be possibly seen some early Banshee play, I suppose, but you've seen pretty much everything in the cast that I've done in Season 6 and Season 7. Of course, this is a Zerg game. This isn't Terran versus Terran, where they try to cheese each other with cloaked Banshee rushes, but instead, we're going to see some typical Terran Zerg play, hopefully, coming out of these two players. CuePhoenix putting down that spawning pool after hatchery. Spawning pool on who knows when that was, because it wasn't paying too much attention, but the 2 players are equal on the worker supply, so CuePhoenix should be shooting ahead in that worker supply as soon as his hatchery is finished, or maybe even slightly before that. If he decides to drone up thinking that the Terran player is taking it easy, CuePhoenix getting some nice little vision of what's going on in this base. Nice little wall off with just a barracks that is chugging along, going to build his first Marine, and this Overlord could make it inside to see that there's really nothing going on back here. Double refinery, though, coming from IAmTony and hiding this factory in the back. Could be some interesting play from IAmTony if he decides to do some kind of one base push in to kill CuePhoenix, or not kill CuePhoenix, but kill his little units, his little army guys. Hatchery going down, Queen being built right away. That's the advantage of having that spawning pool out. And wow, look at so many drones over here at the main. You can transfer about half of these and gain a lot of income by doing that. Another Queen coming out. Oh, as I say that, they are being moved over. Wow, CuePhoenix doing such a good job. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. As we all know that CuePhoenix is me, but we won't get into that. So, IAmTony lifting up his barracks and putting down a reactor. This still does a wall off. Let's take the insert and delete keys and try to take a look at that. You still do a wall-off with that reactor. The one disadvantage of that, of course, is that that makes the reactor very prone to attack from attacks up that entrance ramp. But this is not playing Terran versus Terran. Zerg units have mostly been melee units at the front. Those Zerglings, they will encounter this, and this is maybe not so much of a risk. There's a little reduced surface area on each of these buildings, so that's not too bad. All this supply depot is very exposed here, a lot of surface area there, but IAmTony going for a bunch of barracks all at once and trying to keep Overlords out of the base to keep this secret strategy a secret. CuePhoenix going to be able to see a couple of barracks, maybe one, maybe... Oh! I think he was only able to see one more. So I think at this point all he can see is 2 barracks. He may have been able to see that this one was a reactor. I guess we could pop over to the CuePhoenix cam and see what's going on there. He did not see the reactor, although he did see this other building here, so I think he may have been able to figure out that that was many barracks. So should be expecting a lot of Marine pressure coming from the Terran player, but CuePhoenix is happily on these 2 bases and starting to bank a bunch of minerals, which means he needs to build a bunch of drones or a bunch of spine crawlers or something like that. Checking out the supply tab, we can see that CuePhoenix is low on worker supply. Look at that, tending to deciding to make a bunch of army units right now. Now, these Zerglings are not speed Zerglings because CuePhoenix apparently has not finished researching the metabolic speed boost. Not only has he not finished it, but he has not even started it. Look at that, just now having enough gas to do that metabolic speed boost, but he did put down a Baneling nest, so that's going to be kind of interesting. CuePhoenix half expecting his opponent to have already expanded to this natural expansion because it is at the 7-minute mark, which is pretty late for natural expansion. IAmTony has built a starport back here and has the tech lab on the factory, so building tanks and a whole bunch of reactors. Looks like he's trying to build a whole bunch of marines, but it's not that he has a huge excess of minerals or anything like that. CuePhoenix very quietly and patiently waiting for these rocks to go down, but to his surprise, he's going to find that there's no natural expansion here. There's no natural expansion anywhere, so this is 1 base Terran versus 2 base Zerg. That is going to be very profitable for CuePhoenix. Zerg lanes hanging out here at this forward Xel'Naga tower are going to be giving him vision for when Tony does that inevitable move out. But CuePhoenix just sitting back, building up gas and minerals, and building up that supply count. 28 army supply for CuePhoenix. He's really slowly whittling down on this and building Banelings. Should be seeing those. That is very interesting. Didn't see Banelings before with CuePhoenix's games, but all those games were primarily based on map control. With a 2-player map like this, there's not as much map to control. That gives him an opportunity to go for some attacks. Now, it's kind of funny. He should have sent at least a few Zerglings up here. They're just going to sit here working on these rocks, and down they go. Should be seeing them coming up to expect to be hitting a mineral line in the natural, but there is nothing in the natural. So CuePhoenix is going to be perhaps surprised by the lack of army units or lack of economy coming from his opponent. But down here in the Silver League, you never know what you're going to find. The Blizzard Online ladder matching you up with all sorts of different opponents. And if you look at these supplies, I mean, honestly, CuePhoenix is actually just kind of on par with his opponent. Not sure where all the army supply is from IAmTony, if that's just in the queue. Looks like it's in the queue, but oh, that is very interesting. All these Marines were supply blocked. Tank coming down, being able to do a lot of damage on those Banelings, but uh-oh, the supply depot is down, and here come in the Zerglings. They have suddenly turned into speed Zerglings as we speak. Marines being... Actually, the Marines weren't stimmed. I think they're just being healed by these medevacs, and IAmTony holding off that initial attack by CuePhoenix. So at this point, the worker supplies are actually fairly even. I don't know whether to attribute that to IAmTony's macro awesomeness or CuePhoenix's macro terribleness. It looks like CuePhoenix has gone straight into assault mode, building 42 Zerglings on the way. And where are these routed? These are routed all the way across the map, perhaps. No, just routed back here for defense at the natural. Is that really 42? That just seems like, that doesn't seem like 42, but... No, maybe it is. That is 42. A lot of little guys in there. I guess I can't count. It's kind of hard to count when there's lots of little guys down there. Will IAmTony move out and expand to that natural expansion like he really should? Ooh, supply blocking himself. Or will he just do some sort of massive drop? CuePhoenix with those handful of Zerglings at the Xel'Naga Tower will be able to see this drop as it comes in. Let's check out the CuePhoenix cam and see if he can see them coming. He does see them coming in. And I heard a bunch, what is that? I think that was an Overlord being killed. And IAmTony's units, that is 24 Marines and 1 tank making their way over. Not sure CuePhoenix saw that at all. He's got a very large batch of Zerglings coming in to attack the main, while IAmTony is going to be going for a Doom drop into CuePhoenix's main. Could be hanging out over here where CuePhoenix can't see too much, but that's one of the advantages of Zerg, is that with the creep spread, even just the default creep spread of your main base, you can detect armies coming in. Queen's actually making their way over. They are expecting a drop. IAmTony is going to be very surprised to see this CuePhoenix doing a move right into the natural, right at the same time, trying to make use of IAmTony's distracted multitasking. Those medevacs trying to find a place to land. They're going to get damaged by those queens. The queens will be focusing on those medevacs or the ground units. And right at the same time, CuePhoenix doing just walking straight in the main. Look at all those buildings were exploded. That must have been a Baneling bust right there. These Marines taking down the Overlords, now working on the spawning pool. CuePhoenix better put down an alternate spawning pool very quickly, or else he's not going to be able to make Zerglings ever. Baneling nest is very exposed. Queen going down. This is a sieged tank is inside the main of CuePhoenix. That is a big problem, but IAmTony has a big problem as well, as Zerglings are coming in and cleaning up all of those tech add-ons to those buildings. Those buildings are not being lifted up. Just a bunch of medevacs just hanging out here trying to heal that one Marine. That's not in time. Zerglings already in the mineral line killing SCVs. This is bad news for IAmTony. He really needs to lift off, because these Zerglings cannot attack ground units, but instead he's just sitting there, and the SCVs now lift off. SCVs are going to get picked up by these medevacs, hopefully, or they're just running away. But another group of Zerglings coming in from CuePhoenix, and looking back here at the drop, looks like IAmTony is heading home with only losing 3 Marines. That was a pretty good drop, but he didn't completely clean up this mineral line. CuePhoenix will be able to rebuild it, but more importantly, back at his base, he's in really big trouble with these Zerglings all over his base, cleaning up all of his supply depots. Now he is supply blocked. He will not be able to make any units, and he is kind of in a pickle. He's going to have to drop his units that come in. He will have a bunch of charged up medevacs, so they will be able to heal those Marines as they come in. CuePhoenix's Zerglings were on attack position for these 2 buildings, so they did not attack those Marines, and they were able to clean up a bunch of them, but he was able to lift off. So now we're in this kind of funny position here. CuePhoenix on 1 base versus IAmTony's 0 base. As he sits here supply blocked, I'm not sure. There's a couple of SCVs left. There's 4 SCVs left for IAmTony. Can he make a comeback? He's going to try to come in here and attack these Zerglings, and lots of medevacs healing those Marines. I don't think they're stemmed, and the Zerglings are getting whittled down. Look at that. Those Marines doing an excellent job. Look at all that healing from those medevacs, and CuePhoenix is being pushed out of the base yet one more time. Will IAmTony be able to make a comeback? He's got 900 minerals, so he could build some farms. Wow, boy, that shows my age. Is this Warcraft 2? No, I do not think so. He could build some supply depots. Now, CuePhoenix building that alternative spawning pool, as I mentioned before, and starting to rebuild back in his main, putting down a Spire, so it looks like this may come down to a Spire battle. Now, don't forget, he did lose one of those earlier games in Season 7 because he had no air units to be able to hit these buildings that were lifted off. Now, IAmTony not quite doing a full wall off here. That's kind of an interesting layout of his buildings. Now, these buildings do have quite a few hit points, 1,200 hit points and 1,300 hit points for the starport and the factory and the starport respectively. CuePhoenix keeping Zerglings outside the base, looking for an expansion to the 3rd, not expecting anything to be in the natural after those series of attacks into the main. Now IAmTony trying to make up for lost time by building SCVs, but since he's supply blocked and he's got, wow, 250 minerals locked up in these SCVs, he could be doing some better things with that if you ask me. Marines killing off the couple of scouting Zerglings that came in the base, and CuePhoenix sitting back and massing up Zerglings once again, as that we can see in the production tab. 3 Mutalisks going to be coming out. I'm not sure that I can actually do a follow on this. Hey, look at that. That's really cool. I can follow with the camera while the Mutalisks are building inside those little larva things. So looking at some Mutalisk harassment from CuePhoenix, and IAmTony going to have a really hard time holding them off with just mules over here, finally starting to build SCVs after having to build a whole bunch of supply depots. Now, kind of over-focusing on the supply depots, really needs to build some missile turrets or something like that, or barracks or something, perhaps even just a bunker back here with a couple of Marines could hold off these 3 Mutalisks. Just 3 Mutalisks, that's not too much. Never mind, that's 4 and 5, 6, 7 Mutalisks. That's actually quite a bit. Not sure that he can necessarily one-shot kill SCVs at this point, but he can just do a terrible amount of damage here. SCV's just hanging out. They really need to get mining, because that is one thing that IAmTony is short on, and that is minerals. Of course, it would help if he wasn't queuing up SCVs in the background. Now, he is trying to build... Oh, Hellions are just so expensive on the mineral count. 100 minerals for 1 Hellion, and Hellions can do nothing against Mutalisks. Not sure IAmTony is expecting that from CuePhoenix, but, of course, when you're playing against a Zerg player as a Terran player, you would likely expect that. And a bunch of Zerglings coming out. This is going to be trouble enough for those ground forces. CuePhoenix could be getting ready for some kind of sandwich attack. Oh, a Banshee. That's kind of an interesting move. Banshee and a bunch of medevacs. They're trying to stuff the ramp. Now, that's a pretty good idea, especially when these Zerglings come in. But, of course, CuePhoenix could be sending in those Mutalisks, and he does, as we see them move in, striking for the weak SCVs that are not detected, that are not defended whatsoever. He's going to have to move fast if he's going to get those SCVs out in time, because CuePhoenix is focus firing on each SCV, and that's just a terrible amount of economic damage to IAmTony. He still has almost 200 minerals left, so he could be doing something there, but instead he's just lifting everybody up. Looks like he's going to be going for a counterattack. but he really, I guess it doesn't matter if he lifts up that command center. Now CuePhoenix has vision of all of Tony's bases, all his buildings, and we are in a base race situation. So can Tony lift up some of these buildings and try to get away in time for his units to make it to CuePhoenix's base? Now, IAmTony did a pretty good job attacking into CuePhoenix's main. You can see that message there about IAmTony not rebuilding his base. Will he be able to do enough to win this game? CuePhoenix has pulled the Mutalisk back into his main to try to defend, and the Banshee going to be able to kill the Queen. That is perfect. Got a bunch of Spore Crawlers building in CuePhoenix's CuePhoenix main. I think he was kind of worried about that cloaked Banshee, but that Banshee was not cloaked whatsoever. Mutalisk coming back. These Marines may be able to clean them up. Queen's coming into attack, and more Mutalisk being built, and I don't know how many Marines are left. Looks like there is 8 Marines left. They're being healed at such a rapid rate by these medevacs. They're able to do a ton of damage, but there's just too many Mutalisks in CuePhoenix's main as a defense. 2 base to 1 base, and that is GG from IAmTony. So that was some pretty crazy play from both players. A big doom drop coming from IAmTony twice now in that game, and CuePhoenix trying to kite IAmTony back into his base to defend, and CuePhoenix finally moving out with those Mutalisks, which was really kind of game-changing there. Although I will admit that in the past CuePhoenix was using primarily Zerglings and Roaches, and this shift into using Banelings and Mutalisks really paid off for him in this game. Those Banelings were able to break down those walls at the beginning, at the front of IAmTony's base, and the Mutalisks, of course, were able to harass from multiple directions, doing a very good job of being that second prong in that 2-pronged attack you saw there at the end. So, once again, we're seeing that very common combination of the Zergling, Baneling, Mutalisk, and that does rely on that second base, getting the gases up at both bases to support all that gas, because Banelings cost gas and Mutalisk costs a lot of gas. And IAmTony was holding out just to enter that second phase of the game, and he didn't have a base really at that point to counteract the second phase of this game, which included the Mutalisks and the Banelings, which caused a terrible amount of damage in that double piercing attack at that time. So good game to CuePhoenix, good game to IAmTony, and that marks the end of Season 7 of the Online Ladder, and almost the end of my casting of ladder games. Going to be casting Season 8 pretty soon, and 1 game in that, and that'll be GosuDad signing out. See you later. Check out the blog, GosuDad.blogspot.com, as well as my Twitter, @GosuDad.